A very good morning, dear children. Today we will study chapter power sharing. What do you understand by the term power sharing? First, I will make you understand in a very easy way what is power sharing. You all are familiar with this word power sharing. See, power sharing is required everywhere, either for running a small institution or running a big country like India. Take an example of the school where you are studying. Here also the power is being shared by the management to the principals, then to the vice principals, to the in charges, and by same into the different people working in this institution. In the same way, for running a country like India, the power is shared between different organs, that is legislature, executive and judiciary. To understand the meaning of power sharing and the importance, not the meaning but the importance of power sharing, first I will tell you the example of Belgium and Sri Lanka. These are two small countries, how they have shared their power, what were the consequences and the results in these countries for sharing the power. Belgium is a very small country. It is a small country in Europe, even smaller than the Haryana state. It borders with Netherlands, France and Germany, and the population of Belgium is 1 crore, that is half of Haryana. The ethnic composition of Belgium is very complex. What do you understand by the term ethnic? Ethnic is social division based on shared culture. Every country has different kind of culture, religion, linguistic following in their countries. Here we will talk about Belgium, the ethnic composition. Like India, we have people of different communities living here in India, speaking different languages. Same like the Belgium was divided between different languages, that is Dutch, French and German. These were the three different communities who were living in Belgium. Belgium was divided on the basis of these communities. Dutch were in majority in Belgium. They were 59%. French 40%. German 1%. And these people were living in different regions of Belgium. See, as I told you, 59% lives in the Flemish region. In which region they live? Flemish region. And these people, 59% who lives in the Flemish region, what language they were speaking? Dutch. And this Flemish region was near to Netherlands. 40% were living in Wallonia region and the language which they were speaking was French. Means they were near France. 1% speaks German. This we are talking about the country Belgium. So what we have seen? In the country Belgium, the Dutch were in majority and the French were in minority. But this was vice versa in the capital city of Brussels. In Brussels, 80% speaks French. Means in the capital city of Brussels, Brussels was the capital of the country where the French were in majority and the Dutch were in minority. Now clear to everyone? Now, what was the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka? Because we will study 3-4 factors in this chapter. The first is about Belgium and Sri Lanka. To make you clear, I will first let you know the ethnic composition of these two countries, that is your Belgium and Sri Lanka. Belgium, I have already told you, in Belgium 59% were Dutch and 40% were French and 1% were German speaking. They were living in different regions, but in the capital it was just a vice versa. The French were 80%, that is in Brussels, and the Dutch were in 20%. What happened in Sri Lanka? In Sri Lanka, Sinhalas were in majority. 74% were the Sinhalas, 18% were the Tamils. The Tamils were divided into two subgroups, that is Indian Tamils and the native Tamils, means the Sri Lankan Tamils who were already originated from Sri Lanka. Indian Tamils were those Tamils whose forefather had been brought during the colonial period as plantation workers. And 1% were Christians, 7% were others and they occupy Christians, Tamils and Sri Lankans. This was the complex ethnic composition of Sri Lanka. How they have shared the power, we will try to understand, and what were its consequences. So we will cover these 4 topics in this chapter. Belgium and Sri Lanka. I have already told you the ethnic composition of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Then the next topic is majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. Now I will tell you what is majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. Now, as I told you, there are 4 topics we'll cover in this chapter. This is the second topic. Majoritarianism in Sri Lanka. What do you understand by the term majoritarianism? As I told you that the Sinhalas were in majority in Sri Lanka. Majoritarianism means the community which is in majority and it tries to dominate over the minority. What happened in this Majoritarianism Act? The government of Sinhala has passed an act in 1956 to establish Sinhala supremacy. Means Sinhala is going to rule over the Tamils. Under this act, they recognized Sinhala as the only official language. Means no importance was given to the Tamils. Then policies were being passed that favored Sinhala applicants for university position and jobs. The Sinhalas were given reservation in jobs as well as in government universities only to Sinhalas. Then they launched a new constitution and they asked the people to promote and foster Buddhism. Means more and more importance was given to the Buddhism language. Now what happened to Tamils? Because of this act, you can see here all the policies were in the favor of the Sinhalas. The Tamils were totally ignored by the Sinhala government. The Tamils started feeling alienated and they continuously started demanding that their language should be recognized also as an official language. They should be also given reservation. Not only this, they said that they started forming their own parties. Litti was also being formed under this act. When this act was passed, because it took a turn of a civil war, they started demanding a part of the Sri Lanka that if you are not following all these policies for us, then kindly you give me an area reserve in Sri Lanka. They were demanding that northern eastern part of Sri Lanka should be given to them. Now, after this act of majoritarianism, the struggle of Sri Lankan Tamils had started. The Sri Lankan Tamils launched parties, struggled for the recognition of Tamil as an official language. They have formed their own parties. As I told you, Litti was formed. They started demanding that their language should be also given importance like Sinhala. Tamil demanded regional autonomy. They want their own rule over a particular region. Equality of opportunity in education as well as in jobs. By 1980, several political parties were formed demanding independent Tamil state in the northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka. They started demanding that they should be given an area where they can rule individually. Autonomous power is in their hand. Conflict started between these two communities, that is your Tamils and Sri Lanka, and which has resulted into a civil war. This is about Sri Lanka. Because I told you in the beginning that here we will discuss about power sharing. What we have seen in Sri Lanka? In Sri Lanka, the power was not shared equally between the different communities living there, between the majority and the minority. Now we will discuss about Belgium. What happened in Belgium? Now we will discuss the third topic of the chapter. Accommodation in Belgium. What do you understand by accommodation? Here, the previous topic we have read majoritarianism. Majoritarianism means when the powerful community tries to dominate over the minority. Accommodation means when you consider each and every different communities living in your country equally, give equal importance to them, and you take all of them together for running the country. See, for the accommodation in Belgium, so that people of different community can live peacefully in Belgium, the government of Belgium has taken a different path. They have amended their constitution 4 times between 1970 to 1973. This is the arrangement of accommodation. How they have followed the policy of accommodation. Equal representation in central government. Means the central government was having equal number of representative of both the Dutch and the French speaking people. means the number of Dutch and French speaking people should be equal in the central government. No single community can make decisions unilaterally or alone. Means both the Dutch and French, they have to work together. Second thing, what they do? The state government are not subordinate to the central government. Means many power of the central government was given to the state government. State government is not going to work under the central government. Then the capital city of the Belgium, that is the Brussels. I have already told you that the capital city Brussels was having 80% French and 20% German. The capital city Brussels was also having a separate government in which both the Dutch speaking people and the French speaking people have equal representation. Then fourth, the most important thing and very different thing which they adopted is a system of community government. What is community government? This was a third kind of government other than the central and the state which was followed in Belgium. This community government was followed so that the people belonging to different community regarding the cultural, educational and language related issues, the government has the power regarding all these subjects to make a different third kind of government is being elected, which is being elected by the people of different language, the people who are speaking different language like Dutch, French and German. Now, this is just a quick recap to make you understand. I have already told you in Belgium, 59% people were Dutch, 40% people were French, and 1% people were German. But it was just the vice versa in Brussels, which I told you. Brussels was the capital of Belgium. 80% speaks French and 20% speaks Dutch. Now we'll discuss the next topic, that is why power sharing is desirable. Till now we have discussed about the ethnic composition of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Then we discuss about the majoritarianism policy in Sri Lanka and what were its effects, results, consequences. Then we discuss the accommodation in Belgium. Now we'll simply discuss why this power sharing is desirable, why there is a need of power sharing. First reason, there are two reasons given in your NCERT book. The first reason is called prudential reason. The name has been given because you get questions, so you can use this as your notes also. The second reason is called moral reason. What is prudential reason? The term prudential reason means which is based on the calculation of profit and loss. The government has kept to these reasons. To understand this, I'll tell you a small story. For example, a father is having a property. If he is not going to share his property equally between his two children, what happens? After his death, they will quarrel among each other. But if the property is equally divided, they will live peacefully. Means the father has to think before his death, the power should be shared equally among both the children. Here also, this is based on the calculation of profit and loss, because the government knows that if power is not being shared, what can be the consequences? First, to avoid conflict, because every country is having a diversity of their ethnics. So to avoid conflict among the different community, language, religion, people living in that country. To ensure political stability, so that every time there is no violence taking place in the country. Third, to bring out better outcome, because if the power is being shared, that you can understand through my story, the outcome, the result will be better. And this is most important, so that the majority dominate. If majority will dominate the minority, this will undermine the unity of the nation, because we know a democratic country is that country where everybody is treated equally. Majority community cannot rule over the minority. The another reason is called moral reason. What is moral? Moral here means that wherever there is democracy, power sharing is very, very important. It is the root of democratic country. If the power is not being shared, we cannot call that country a democratic country. For example, it is the spirit of democracy. Means it is the soul. It is the root of a democratic country. Second, people have a right to be consulted on how they are to be governed. As you have seen in the case of Sri Lanka, that Tamils' demand was ignored continuously by the Sinhalas, and the result was civil war. People have a right to be consulted on how they are to be governed. Then third, it involves sharing power with those affected by its exercise and who have to live within its effects. Means the ruler, means the representative whom we are electing, and we as a citizen, we both have the right that whatever the decision is being taken by the government, it should not affect us. Now we will discuss with you the last topic of this chapter, that is different forms of power sharing. There are 4 types of power sharing. The first power sharing is called horizontal forms of power sharing, because in this form of power sharing, the power is shared between different organs placed at the same level. They are at a horizontal line. That's why it is called horizontal form of power sharing. In this form of power sharing, the power is shared between different organs, and these all organs, that is legislature, executive and judiciary, they all are placed at the same level. But they have different powers. You have already read in class 9. They exercise different powers. None of the organs has unlimited power. Nobody is having unlimited power. Each organ keeps on checking each other. They check each other. And that's why this form of power sharing is also called check and balance method. They keep on checking each other. That's why this form of power sharing is called check and balance method. This is the first form of power sharing, which is called horizontal form of power sharing. For example, to make you understand what is check and balance method, judges are appointed by executive. You know this. Who appoints the judges? Executive. They are appointed by executive, but can check the functioning of executive or laws made by the legislature. And once they are being appointed as a judge, they have the right to check the work of the executive. Now, this is the second form of power sharing. As I told you that we will discuss 4 forms of power sharing. We have already discussed the first form of power sharing, that was horizontal line. That's why it was called horizontal form of power sharing. Now this is the second form of power sharing. This power sharing is called vertical division of power sharing. Here the power is shared between different governments, the governments which are placed at different level. For you can see that the central government, then state government, then the local government. We know the central government is for the entire country. Then we have regional or provincial government. Then the local government, which is being divided between municipalities and panchayati raj. These are different governments which are placed at different levels. So this is called vertical division of power. Here the power is shared between different governments and the government which are placed at different level. One government is for the entire country. Then we have the regional government or the provincial government at the regional or provincial level. This is called state government. Then we have the local government, which is divided between municipalities and panchayati raj. This we will study in detail in the different chapter. Now the third form of power sharing. What is the third form of power sharing? The third form of power sharing is that in this form of power sharing, the power is shared among different social groups such as the religious and linguistic groups. Because as I told you earlier also, this was a reason why the conflict has taken place in Belgium and Sri Lanka. Especially this tension was more acute in the Brussels, where we have already seen that who were in majority and who were in minority. Power shared among different social groups such as the religious and linguistic group. For example, the example of this form of power sharing is the community government, which is in Belgium, because this was the third kind of government which was formed in Belgium based on the cultural, educational related issues. Then in India, here also the power is shared between different social groups in the form of reservation between SC, ST, OBC and women. Power sharing arrangements can also be seen in the way political parties, pressure groups and movements control and influence those in power. Here you can understand how the power is shared between different political parties. Why political parties? See, when no party wins with a majority, they try to form an alliance. And when their alliance is being formed, they form a coalition. Not only this, different political parties have their own ideologies for the different social groups. And we give importance to those ideologies given by the different political parties. In this way, the political parties also share power. Because there is competition among different parties and people have the right to choose their representative. Power shared among different parties representing different ideologies and social groups. As I told you, in this way also the power is shared between different parties having different ideologies for different social groups. When two or more parties form an alliance to contest election, if their alliance is elected, they form a coalition government. This is the last form of power sharing. How we can understand the power is shared between different political parties, pressure groups and movements. In a democracy, we find different interest groups such like traders, businessmen, industrialists, farmers and industrial workers. They also share power among themselves through governmental committees and bringing influence on the decision making process. When you will go through the NCERT, each and every topic will be clear to you. Thank you, children.